What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday we had a report break that once again had us questioning the future of physical video games. That is until the company in question did respond, but not necessarily as clearly as I would have liked, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about some strange stuff going on at Sony when it comes to a certain program that has actually been down for weeks with no real solution in sight. And then we also have Embracer Group, who, as we know, has been canceling a lot of projects, and one in particular, well, it's a real shame. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with an update to yesterday's story, this having to do with the situation around Pyoro and Bloomberg, as it appeared that Pyoro's source was just kind of outed by Jason Shreier in his report, although some actually pointed out to me that he did post up an image of the DM that he had sent to Pyoro that then led to Pyoro basically telling him his source. So we can see this was actually posted up in several replies to his article over on Twitter X, where he says, this was to Pyoro, got it, thanks for getting back to me. I'm working on a story about rumors and insiders, including you and the web backend theory, so please do let me know if there's any other context I should know about. And it seems like after this, Pyoro decided to tell them that, yes, their source is linked to the web backend for Nintendo that pretty much had Pyoro going off the rails and just deleting everything and sort of ghosting online at that point. So once again, just added context to the whole thing. There's still a lot of discussion around if it should have or shouldn't have been shared online. To me, though, if a reporter like Jason Shreier shows up in your direct messages asking you something like that, just automatically assume that whatever you're going to tell him could be used in a story, and that would include your source, unless it's preceded by the words "off the record." Also, we do have Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition coming up this week that will have a mission linking it in some way to Beyond Good and Evil 2, which brings up the question, is that still in development? Well, we have an official response. We can see this is posted up once again over on Twitter X. This is from the official Beyond Good and Evil account, so Ubisoft, saying, yes, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still in development, and we cannot wait for you to discover more about Jade's past in the 20th Anniversary Edition. It does appear there's going to just be more information that we'll be getting from, like, different unlockables and stuff that I guess as you play through the game will be in sort of a museum setup. So interesting. They also said it's a picture of Rayman that is featured in the trailer, and there's a video and more to discover in the anniversary gallery. So a lot of stuff to check out. But okay, so Beyond Good and Evil 2, there's still a lot of questions as to how exactly it's going to work, because it seems like ever since it was announced, it's been Ubisoft basically stumbling over themselves every time they've brought it up. So maybe this extra mission will be a way to reintroduce Beyond Good and Evil 2 and maybe set a clear path for what exactly they have planned for it. But first, we need this Anniversary Edition to come out later on this week and actually play to that point. Oh, and while there was a bit of a scare yesterday for physical media collectors, we also had some good news that got out there for collectors, especially when it comes to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is a hot topic now since we do have a new version of that game coming out in a collection. And in fact, we can see this is posted up. This is by Video Games Plus, VGP, says they have been able to confirm that all games included in the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, the arcade classics, are contained on the cartridge and disc. So if you have it on the Switch or if you get it on the PlayStation, it'll all be there. There's no download, no blue banner or internet required or something on the box. Great news, because as I've mentioned, we saw what happened before with Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the likenesses, the licensing. That thing's going to get pulled eventually. Like, come on. So getting it on disc or cartridge, I think, is paramount just in general, not even for collectors, but obviously fans of the game or the series. And there is a lot of content on that disc or that cartridge with this collection. So yes, I would absolutely buy at least one copy and have it set up physically, so you don't have to worry about it just disappearing one day on that storefront. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a report that broke yesterday morning that caused a bit of a scare for physical video game collectors. Of course, people like to buy their games and have it there on the disc or cartridge and not have to worry about any potential issues with the digital version, depending on how the publisher or developer feels that day, right? Well, in this case, a report broke, which you can see this here. This is from Gfinity Esports. They say, following the move away from pre-owned games, consoles, and technology, the iconic British storefront that being game, will no longer stock gaming-related content in store. Say sources close to the retail store tell Gfinity that gaming hardware and software will only be available on a pre-order basis. This means that new releases such as Indiana Jones and The Great Circle or Doom, The Dark Ages, must be purchased before release. So this is a bit leading in their explanation here with the sourcing. Because we did have a response, all right, and this was from Game, and again, this whole thing is not necessarily that clear, but they say, this from VGC, a spokesperson for Game has denied the report, telling VGC that this reporting is categorically not true. Quote, Game continues to support the physical gaming market, offering a wide range of physical games, hardware, software, accessories, and digital products in stores and online. So the thing about that is, technically, based on what was reported here by Gfinity Esports, they would still have physical media in stores, but it would only be by a pre-order basis, as in they would not order overflow or floor copies so back in the day when we'd have to do ordering for different stores, we'd look at the pre-order numbers, and that would determine how many games in general we ordered. Usually, if for every one pre-order, we would order 2 games. All right, one for the pre-order customer and just one as an extra, unless it was a game that has a history of having a ton of walk-ins. So Madden, for example, big walk-in game. We expected many people to come in that did not pre-order at all because it was a game that hit closer to the mainstream consumer, as opposed to like the hardcore gamer who would come into the store every single week to just buy something, right? Just for the fun of it. So in that instance, technically Game spokesperson is correct because they would still have physical media, but they'd be pulling away from the idea of ordering a lot of physical media, and that would be less of a reliance then, yes, on new physical games. Which is actually something that doesn't really surprise me, considering earlier this year, we had heard that Game was moving away from taking trade-ins and then stocking used games, systems, etc. And typically you would get new games in, not necessarily to make a profit outright at the register, you would have new games as basically trade-in bait. So in order to have people trade stuff in, you need something they want, and well, you go ahead and just bring in the new Call of Duty, put it on the store shelf at $60 or $70, and hope that someone will trade in 3, 4, 5 games in order to get it, and then that cycle continues where you have used games getting traded in for other used games, and eventually you get to a point where your profit margin is through the roof, but you may need the new game in order to kickstart that entire process each holiday season. So in this instance, with no interest in having used trade-ins, there's really not much of a reason to have new games, just to be honest, unless they just want the foot traffic, and even that is kind of dying off a bit as more and more people are looking towards the digital storefronts to get their games even at midnight. So I don't necessarily think there's an indication right away that physical media is gone next year or something, but it is pretty clear that it is winding down. Trust me, go to your Walmart, your Best Buy, wherever, and just take a look at their video game section, and you will notice over time that it continues to dwindle down more and more and more and more. So yeah, not quite yet. I think there's still a generation left for the PlayStation. I think there's at least 2 generations left for Nintendo, but I wouldn't be shocked if Microsoft is ready to move on as soon as next gen for the Xbox that could start at the end of 2026. Next up, let's talk about some weird stuff that is currently going on at PlayStation with their rewards program, that being PlayStation Stars. We did talk about how their other rewards program that was linked to like the credit card was just being shut down, and it seemed like Sony was looking towards maybe something else to do instead, as they left sort of a tease as like, we're always trying different things, so stay tuned. But PlayStation Stars has actually been malfunctioning and just not available for multiple weeks now. And in fact, if you go over on their website here, it does say PlayStation Stars is currently experiencing issues. Our engineers are aware of the issue, and we are working on a solution. So Sony has actually been getting kind of roasted for this on social media for the last 7 or 8 days now, because it has kind of turned into an ongoing meme that PlayStation Stars is down. And believe it or not, there is a PlayStation Stars subreddit. It was kind of news to me, to be honest, but in fact, many of the people over there have even discovered that there are new rewards still being added, despite it being down right now. Like they found Clank, Sweet Tooth, Nathan Drake, Traveler, enamel pins. Now with PlayStation Stars, as you buy games or do different things in games they have set up for like quests and stuff, you'll get points, and you can use them to buy digital trophies, basically, that you could put in your little case, and it's just a fun little thing to have. And I do get notifications still now. When I bought the Elden Ring DLC, I got a notification that I had attained points, and when I went to it, it just said, sorry, it's down right now. So it does still appear to be tracking. In fact, this is something that people spent quite a bit of time figuring out over on, once again, the PlayStation Stars subreddit, that they are updating the app consistently behind the scenes. We just don't have access to it for some reason. And people are also saying, yes, I am getting notifications for points, for new rewards, but I just can't go into the app. And Sony has not responded in a meaningful way. So I'm not really sure what's happening right now. The only thing I can think of is because they are doing a sunsetting of their rewards program that's tied to their credit card. Is that in some way tied to PlayStation Stars? Unlike the back end with their own servers and stuff, maybe with customer information and crossover. I guess it's possible, but it just seems very, very weird right now to have this down for what's been more than 2 weeks. So let me know if you're somebody who's actually been logging into PlayStation Stars frequently and you're someone who's getting annoyed by this, or even you're confused about why exactly it's still down. Next up, let's talk about Embracer Group, who has been cutting back on expenses left, right, and center, getting to the point where they are just selling off studios, IPs, and canceling many projects behind the scenes as they are doing sweeping layoffs. And we are getting some information as to what projects they are canceling. And yeah, some of them are pretty frustrating to see happen, like Time Splitters, we talked about that. And most recently, a new Red Faction game. Well, at least their attempt at a Red Faction game. We can see this is posted up. This is by Rock Paper Shotgun saying, in the process of these reductions with Embracer, they've also binned off 2 video game projects. One being like the sci-fi Metroidvania that was in full development, and the other, a visual prototype for a brand new Red Faction game. Now, they mentioned visual prototype. Doesn't necessarily mean they were well into development or anything like that. I kind of take that as this is a pitch we're going to make based on a very small slice of the game that was more to show off the visuals. But the fact that they at least had an idea maybe for a new Red Faction game to kind of set that in motion is exciting. It would have been interesting to see how they would have gone about that, because Red Faction is a game that I do feel was pretty far ahead of its time with some of the stuff it did with its hardware in mind. And I really think of like Red Faction Guerrilla with on the 360, you'd go around, just blow up buildings, and the destruction was incredible for its time on that Xbox 360. The remastered edition, while still rough around the edges because it was an older game, was still pretty impressive with some of the destruction you would do with like the mines or your big hammer and stuff you'd be breaking up, and the shooting, not very tight, but most people just wanted to run around and cause all kinds of destruction, and the game certainly delivered on that. But that was with older technology. Even with like 2011, I think was the last Red Faction. It was like Armageddon or something. And that one, I don't think was as good as Guerrilla, but it still had the same kind of idea with Red Faction. And now with newer technology, with these different systems, and especially on PC, I feel like they could have done some really impressive stuff. But unfortunately, it's Embracer, and that's probably a game that would not have been out for, let's be real, 4 or 5 years. And the way Embracer is operating now, it's like, well, we got to make sure stuff is coming out in the next 12 months. We don't even know if we're going to make it that long. Just kind of the way it looks from the outside in with some of their struggles when it comes to finances. So yeah, certainly a shame to see Red Faction and Time Splitters pretty much shelved indefinitely at this point under a company that really just doesn't have the ability to do anything with those IPs. It does kind of make me hope that we do hear about Embracer maybe bundling a bunch of these IPs together and selling them or shipping them off somewhere to some other company, although that company may then just turn around and remaster a bunch of these games again. But I would like to see something happen with Red Faction to see what they can really accomplish with some of these newer systems. But something tells me if it's under Embracer, we may never see it again, and if we do, it'd probably be like a decade or 2 from now. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Steam Deck now hitting its lowest price I think that I've ever seen. And this is impressive stuff, especially when you consider sort of the value that you would get with a Steam Deck, of course, with the different Steam sales and really access to that sort of library that typically you'd be building a fairly expensive PC to do. Well, we can see this posted up. This is over on the Steam-powered website for Steam Deck. Currently, it's 15% off. That's until July 11th, so you have a few weeks now. And the 64GB LCD-equipped Steam Deck being marked down to $296.65. And it seems like it gets out to you pretty quick. 3 to 5 business days. Not that situation before where the Steam Deck came out and it was like, oh yeah, we'll get it to you sometime next year. In this case, it'll show up probably before the end of the week if you order it on a Monday. And yes, this is the base model. So it's not like the newer one that has better battery life, what we have with the OLED. But I think this is a good entry point for someone, even for PC gaming. The Steam Deck is still a very capable device because it has seen many updates from developers and Valve themselves in order to squeeze as much performance as possible out of the device. And a 64 gigabyte model, you could drop a 512 gigabyte SD card in there and you'd be perfectly fine when it comes to storage. So yeah, this is, to me, an easy recommendation if you've been curious about it at that price point. You can also go up to the 512 gigabyte model, but that's like $381 with an LCD equipped. So personally, I would just say the $296 64 gigabyte model with a 512 gigabyte SD card, and it'll be actually a good bit cheaper than that 512 model. But definitely a good time to pick one of these up if you've been interested, especially at that current price point. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you use PlayStation Stars? Okay, 83% say no, 17% say yes. That's actually a little more than I thought. I mean, PlayStation Stars, you get points and stuff and fun little rewards, but it's not necessarily something that Sony just throws in your face constantly, even on your PlayStation. And at this time, it doesn't even work. So if you're someone who's now heard about this thing, you're like, let me check it out, you kind of can't. So I feel like just in general, there's just like, how serious is Sony about this thing in the first place, with it being down for weeks now? But who knows? Maybe they have plans to do some big update for it, and that's the reason it's down. You can always hope, but something tells me it'll probably come back next week and it'll just be like nothing really changed and it was just stuff they were trying to fix on the back end that isn't obvious to us. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Kango, who says, I'm confused as to why Pyoro would do an interview at all if they are trying to stay hidden. Yeah, I don't know. That's the big question, is why would they even talk to anyone? Let alone Jason Shreier, who shows up and saying, I'm writing a story, can you give me some additional info or context for it? And then you just start talking about your story. It seems like Pyoro is just very inexperienced when it comes to that. But my advice would have been just don't say anything at all. Like, just don't respond. Just leave the DM where it is and just move along from there. Unless they really wanted the publicity and I don't know, I guess the fame from it. And obviously they were having a lot of fun on Twitter X. And I guess at that point they also ended up outing their source, who, why were they feeding them information from the back end unless they were like friends in the real world and it was just like a fun thing for them? And then Nintendo found out and most likely dismissed their friend from their job at Nintendo. So there you go. It didn't turn out well either way for Pyoro, and now I think that's kind of the end of the little red bird on Twitter X, just giving us all kinds of info right before a direct happens. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the report that broke about Game and their physical media in stores and them refuting it. And then also, what about PlayStation Stars still being down and the Steam Deck getting that cheap? Are you thinking about finally picking one up? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.